imagine walking into this totally empty clearing in a really dense forest.
Okay, picture that.
And a really profound, intense conversation has just taken place there. Like the air is literally still buzzing with the energy of it.
It can almost feel it.
Exactly. You can see the indentations in the grass where the participants were sitting in this perfect circle, but they're gone now.
Right.
And I don't just mean they packed up and left the area. I mean, they are gone from the earth entirely.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they've left behind what the text we're exploring today calls an architecture of absence.
I love that phrase.
It's such a striking concept, right? Because we typically think of existence and non-existence as this strict binary, like you are either here or you aren't.
Yeah, totally black and white.
Exactly. But this text forces us to look at the lingering shape, the heavy footprint of what used to be there.
So today, we're taking you on a deep dive into this incredibly fascinating, genre-bending text. It's titled The Symposium of Extinct Animals by Max and Claude.
It's a great read.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we're going to basically eavesdrop on that empty clearing. But I want to be clear from the jump, our mission today isn't to just look back at the past with this grim, paralyzing sense of loss.
Right. Nobody wants to sit around and be depressed for 20 minutes.
Exactly. We are here to extract the specific, philosophical, and even practical tools this text offers to help you cut through all the noise of modern ecological panic and understand what it actually costs to lose a species.
And the premise of the text is just brilliantly surreal. I mean, it imagines this clearing as existing outside of time and space entirely.
Like a waiting room or something.
Yeah, kind of. It's a destination where stories go when they run out of words. So 5 extinct animals gather here alongside a moderator.
And moderator is, well, it's weird, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And the moderator isn't an animal at all. It's a creature representing infinite, unchosen evolutionary paths, like just pure potential.
Yeah.
And this moderator poses a single foundational question to the group. What is extinction?
Right. And the first one to answer that is the wolf. Specifically, she was the last of the Great Plains wolves.
Oh.
And her argument is actually that extinction is simply completion.
Completion, that's a different way to look at it.
Yeah. She doesn't view her solitary years or even her final moments, being shot by a hunter as a failure. Not for her or her species.
Interesting.
Instead, she frames it as the dignified, natural conclusion of a fully told story. She argues that every possible ecological variation of her kind had just, been explored.
Wow.
It reminds me of the final punctuation mark of a massive, sweeping novel,
Right.
Like the period at the end of the sentence doesn't destroy the sentence. It completes its meaning.
This raises an important question, though, which the text immediately explores through the perspective of the dodo.
Oh, right, the dodo.
Yeah, because if the wolf represents a natural biological conclusion, the dodo represents extinction as a violent interruption.
Completely different vibe.
Entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Because the dodo lived in this island paradise on Mauritius, right? Perfectly adapted to an ecosystem that was utterly devoid of predators.
So she had no threats.
None. So her extinction wasn't the end of a fully explored evolutionary line. It was, in her own words, a failure of imagination.
That phrase gives me chills, because her environment was so safe that she literally possessed no evolutionary vocabulary to even comprehend the concept of a threat.
Right.
When humans and rats and pigs arrived on European ships, she couldn't imagine a world where trust was a fatal flaw.
She just couldn't process it.
Yeah, she was interrupted mid-sentence by an alien logic she couldn't possibly decode.
And it really highlights a vulnerability in highly specialized evolution. Like the universe itself failed to prepare her.
Yeah.
But, the dodo's story frames extinction as this tragic collision of isolated worlds, whereas another voice in the clearing steps up and just strips the emotion out of it entirely.
Right, arguing that extinction isn't about narrative or geography at all.
Exactly. It's just cold, unfeeling mathematics.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah. I love this part.
Because the passenger pigeon steps in to argue that extinction is fundamentally a statistical event.
Pure math.
Right. And we usually look at extinction through the lens of individual fitness or genetic bottlenecks. Like, if an animal is strong or fast or smart, it survives.
The whole survival of the fittest thing?
Exactly. But the pigeon completely upends that paradigm. It introduces population scale as the primary survival mechanism.
And we really have to emphasize the scale here. The passenger pigeon once numbered over 3 billion.
3 billion! That's insane.
Yeah. They would darken the skies over North America for days at a time. And their entire biological strategy was something called predator satiation through massive colonial breeding.
Wait, what does that mean practically?
Well, they would gather in the millions in a single forest to nest. So a bear or a hawk or a fox could eat absolutely everything they could physically stomach, and it wouldn't even represent a rounding error in the pigeon population.
So their sheer volume was literally their defense mechanism.
Exactly.
But then human hunting and rapid deforestation started driving their numbers down. And the text points out something fascinating about the mechanics of their collapse.
With threshold.
Right. Once their population fell below a critical mathematical threshold, which was around 50 million birds, that massive colonial strategy didn't just weaken, it totally fractured.
It just broke down entirely.
Yeah, and I actually think about this like a massive corporation, one that scales up way too fast based on a very specific business model.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right, because when the market conditions shift, the sheer size and overhead that used to be their greatest asset suddenly becomes a fatal liability.
Yeah, they get crushed under their own weight.
Exactly. They were too large to sustain themselves, but too small to trigger their own survival mechanisms.
And that corporate scaling analogy applies perfectly to their biology, because the pigeons literally required the visual and auditory stimulation of those massive, continent-spanning flocks to trigger the hormonal responses necessary for synchronized breeding. So when the numbers dropped below that 50 million threshold, the density just wasn't high enough. They stopped breeding effectively, which of course caused the population to plummet even faster.
Like a catastrophic positive feedback loop.
Precisely. And the pigeon argues that by the time there were, say, 1 million birds left, they were already mathematically extinct.
Even with 1 million less.
Yeah. The variables had already finalized the equation. The last pigeon, Martha, died in a cage in 1914, but her species was mathematically dead decades before she was even born.
I mean, I understand the math, but I have to push back a little.
Yeah.
Because reducing extinction to a statistical inevitability feels, I don't know, a little passive.
I get that.
And the text actually addresses that friction.
Right.
Through the Tasmanian tiger, or the thylacine.
Oh, yes.
She steps into the circle, and she is just furious. She shatters this whole illusion of natural math and argues that extinction isn't a statistical event.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is a specific, actionable crime. It's murder.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the thylacine forces us to confront the reality of intentional, policy-driven eradication.
Yeah, this wasn't natural.
Not at all. This wasn't a byproduct of habitat loss or some failure to adapt. Between 1888 and 1909, the Tasmanian government instituted a literal bounty system, paying cash for thylacine corpses.
So it's horrible.
They were falsely scapegoated by the agricultural industry for killing sheep, and they were just systematically hunted down.
And the text details the unbearable cruelty of how it ended. The last known thylacine, named Benjamin, he didn't succumb to natural selection in the wild.
No, he didn't.
He died in a zoo in 1936, simply because a worker forgot to open the door to his indoor shelter, so he was left out to freeze to death overnight.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is. And the thylacine's point is that extinction is often born from profound human indifference and deliberate legislative action.
But, the debate in the clearing doesn't end in anger. The quagga, which is like a half-striped zebra, offers a radically different perspective. She argues that extinction is actually an illusion.
An illusion? How so?
Well, she points out that her specific genetic pattern still persists. It's echoing through her living relatives right now in the plains of Africa. In fact, humans are currently selectively breeding zebras to try and bring her exact visual pattern back to the surface.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. She compares herself to a note in a grand symphony. Like, she may have stopped sounding, but the frequency of her existence permanently shaped the harmony of what came next. Her physical form is gone, sure, but she achieved informational persistence.
Informational persistence. That's beautiful.
It is.
And then the never-evolved moderator takes all these testimonies, the wolf, the dodo, the pigeon, the thylacine, the quagga, and synthesizes them.
Right.
Basically concluding that extinction isn't just one of these concepts, it's all of them, operating simultaneously across different scales.
Yeah, it's completion at the scale of narrative, interruption at the scale of consciousness.
A statistical threshold at the scale of population dynamics.
A crime at the scale of morality.
And an illusion at the scale of genetics.
Yeah.
It's a truly multifaceted framework.
It really is. But the genius of Max and Claude's text is that it refuses to let us just float in that abstract philosophy.
Thank goodness, right?
Yeah. It anchors these cosmic ideas by revealing a crucial detail. The clearing wasn't entirely isolated.
Right. There were 3 living humans secretly eavesdropping on this mystical symposium the whole time.
And this changes everything.
It totally shifts the dynamic from the philosophical to the practical.
Exactly. Because the first eavesdropper is Mara Voss, a really prominent conservation biologist.
Okay.
And she's listening to the thylacine describe what it actually feels like to be the very last of your kind. A state the thylacine calls phenomenological searching.
Phenomenological searching.
Yeah. And Mara is struck by the biological implications of that feeling because standard ecological models assume that an animal's behavior, its gorging patterns, its mating calls, its reproductive rate, they assume that remains relatively static regardless of how many others are left.
Like they're just robots executing code.
Right. But the thylacine explains that searching for a mate when your subconscious knows there is literally no one left to find, that fundamentally alters the quality of the search.
It's so sad.
It is. The chronic stress actually changes the animal's internal landscape.
It alters their physiology. And Mara takes this philosophical insight and translates it into hard science.
Yes, she does.
She realizes her predictive models are fundamentally flawed because they just don't account for despair.
Despair is a measurable variable now.
Exactly. She ends up publishing this groundbreaking paper proving that the subjective internal experience actually spikes cortisol, alters behavior, and actively diminishes reproductive success.
It's amazing.
She uses the architecture of absence to fix a massive blind spot in conservation biology.
Then we have Elias Varga, the second eavesdropper.
Oh.
He's a poet who has been paralyzed for years, just trying to write an elegy for the dying world.
Stuck with writer's block.
Basically, yeah. And he listens to the dodo and suddenly realizes why his poetry has been failing. He learns that an elegy shouldn't just be a beautiful, sad reflection on loss. A poem needs to operate as a seed.
A seed, meaning what exactly?
Meaning he realizes that abstract ambient grief doesn't mobilize anyone. To be effective, his art has to hold the uncomfortable, specific, unvarnished facts.
Like the math we talked about.
Yes. He has to use the specific math of 3 billion passenger pigeons. He has to write about Benjamin Cold on the concrete floor of a zoo.
Yeah.
The reader has to feel the specific weight of the tragedy, so they're forced to actually carry it forward into their own decisions.
Which brings us to the third eavesdropper, who honestly perhaps offers the most vital lesson of the entire text.
Yeah, Sina Voss.
That's right, Senna Voss, Mara's 10-year-old daughter.
Just 10 years old.
Okay, let's unpack this, because Senna's response to all of this is brilliant. Instead of internalizing all the doom and gloom of the symposium, this child invents a tool she calls a cost ledger.
A cost ledger. I love this concept.
It's so smart. Senna just refuses the available comforts of vague environmental melancholy.
Yeah, because feeling generally sad about the state of the planet is just this paralyzing, exhausting emotion. It ultimately leads to inaction.
Right. You just give up.
Exactly. So she starts documenting the precise mechanical cost of every single loss.
Down to the details.
Yep. She writes down the exact ecological functions that vanish when a specific local wetland is drained, or the specific insect populations that are going to explode when a local reed bunting disappears.
So if you're listening to this and you are parsing through the relentless, overwhelming cycle of ecological news, Senna's cost ledger fundamentally changes how you can interact with that information.
It really does.
It converts an abstract, paralyzing emotion into a specific, quantifiable metric. It's an intellectual tool.
Yeah, it forces you to find the small, quantifiable failure within your own local range and apply your energy to fixing that, rather than just, grieving the entire globe all at once.
It's a critical shift from passive mourning to active auditing.
Oh, that's well said.
Thanks. And the text proves the necessity of this shift by jumping forward 3 years.
Right, the time jump.
Yeah. The mystical clearing reconvenes for a second symposium, but this time it is not the dead who speak.
It's the living.
Specifically, those teetering right on the edge of the abyss, the creatures clinging to the margins.
And the first to step into the clearing this time is the Sumatran rhinoceros.
Right.
At this point in the narrative, there are only about 80 of them left in the world. Just 80. And the rhino draws a really stark, vital distinction between merely surviving and actually flourishing. because currently human scientists are rushing to save her species by placing them in these highly managed intensive care breeding facilities.
So they're protected.
Yes, but the rhino is deeply conflicted. She acknowledges the protection, of course, but she highlights a devastating secondary loss.
What's the loss?
Well, while the facility is successfully preserving the rhino's genetic code, it is simultaneously erasing their multi-generational landscape knowledge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In the wild, rhinos pass down centuries of highly specific ecological wisdom from mother to calf. They teach each other how to navigate the seasons in a specific valley.
Like where the food is.
Exactly. Where to find hidden mineral licks during a severe drought. Which plants become toxic in certain months.
It's like a city rushing into a burning library to save the physical books.
Yeah.
But losing all the librarians who actually know how to read the language the books are written in.
That is exactly it.
You have the raw data, but the living, breathing memory of how to interface with that data is completely gone.
Right. And the rhino warns us that the biological entity that eventually walks out of that breeding facility, it'll not be the same species that went in.
The hardware survives, but the software has been wiped clean.
Precisely. And following the rhino is the elytra grebe, which is a small, really elusive diving bird.
Right, the grebe.
Yeah. For 25 years, human scientists had officially declared this bird extinct. But then, quite suddenly, an expedition stumbled upon a dozen of them living in a remote pocket of Madagascar.
It's like a resurrection story.
Well, what's fascinating here is that the grebe completely rejects the human narrative surrounding its survival.
Right, because the scientific community is celebrating this massive miracle, and the grebe basically says, there is no miracle here. I was just swimming in the reeds the entire time. I didn't know I was dead.
Yeah, exactly. The grebe exposes the epistemological arrogance of humans.
Well, that's a good way to put it.
It warns us that its rediscovery is not a biological resurrection at all. It is merely a correction of flawed human data.
Right.
And it offers a very stern warning. We cannot let the statistical rediscovery of a few hidden species breed complacency. Like, the fact that humans made a data error with the grebe does not mean they are wrong about the dodo or the thylacine.
Right. The absence of evidence isn't always just a methodological failure of human surveying. Sometimes the biological reality is that the animals are truly permanently gone.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the final speaker of the second symposium. And honestly, perhaps the most controversial.
Oh, the engineered woolly mammoth.
Yes. Or rather, a creature meticulously constructed by geneticists using ancient DNA sequences spliced with modern Asian elephant genomes.
Right, not a pure mammoth.
No. Now, a lot of people listening are probably thinking, wait, isn't this the ultimate scientific triumph?
Right, we usually look at de-extinction as the holy grail of conservation, like literally reversing the clock.
Exactly. So why is the mammoth itself pushing back against that?
Well, the mammoth recognizes the incredible scientific achievement of its own biology. Like, it acknowledges that its thick fur and specialized hemoglobin allow it to perfectly navigate the freezing temperatures.
It functions perfectly.
It does, but it also recognizes a profound internal emptiness. It lacks the 4 million-year continuous history of its ancestors.
It has no context.
None. It isn't haunted by the ghosts of the past because it fundamentally doesn't have a past. It is an entirely new, synthesized beginning.
It actually refers to itself as the living subjunctive.
Yeah.
Like the grammatical tense of what might have been suddenly made actual through sheer force of will.
Yes. And the mammoth makes a profound, really urgent plea to the eavesdroppers. It asks humanity not to view its existence as a victory lap, or as proof that extinction is a reversible condition.
So what does it view itself as?
Evidence of a catastrophic failure.
Wow.
Yeah. It says it's emergency invasive surgery that never should have been required in the first place. The mammoth highlights a massive moral hazard here.
Which is what?
If society looks at this genetic marvel and starts to subconsciously think, well, it's fine if we lose a species today, we can just sequence its genome and clone it in 100 years.
Oh, then the immediate urgency to protect the messy, complicated, wild world completely evaporates.
Exactly. We just give up on the present because we think we can fix it in the future.
Which brings us full circle back to the never-evolved moderator.
Right, the moderator.
Throughout both symposiums, the moderator has just existed as pure, unchosen potential, just quietly observing. But after hearing the testimonies of the dead, the eavesdroppers, and those living on the edge, the moderator experiences this massive epiphany.
Yeah.
It realizes that pure potential isn't just a passive state of being. Potential is a direction.
It has to move.
Right. It must be pointed, like a mathematical vector, toward the forests that are still standing, toward the habitats that haven't been paved over, and toward the species that are still fighting above their statistical thresholds.
It's a fundamental shift, really, from reflecting on what we have lost to fiercely guarding what we still possess.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening right now?
Yeah, how do we apply this?
Well, Max and Claude's text doesn't end with a vague philosophical musing. It leaves you with a direct, unavoidable call to action.
It demands something from the reader.
Yes. And it is embodied by the final realization of Elias Vargas' poem. It reminds you that you are positioned right now, in this exact moment, to make specific, quantifiable choices.
And to maintain your own cost ledger, like Senna.
Exactly.
Right.
To protect the wild spaces in your own perimeter. As the final line of Vargas' poem bluntly states, you know what to do.
And if we synthesize the warnings of the Sumatran rhinoceros and the engineered mammoth, it actually leaves us with one final, deeply provocative question to consider.
What's that?
If human technology dedicates all of its resources, we're talking billions of dollars, to successfully cloning and resurrecting the genetic code of every lost species,
Right.
but we simultaneously allow the wild spaces, the complex habitats, to vanish.
Right.
Are we inadvertently engineering a future of total biological amnesia?
Biological amnesia.
Yeah. Like, we might create a sterile world where every animal physically exists in perfectly managed, climate-controlled parks, but the ancient multi-generational landscape knowledge of how they actually lived, how they fought, and how they shaped the wild is extinct forever.
An architecture of absence.
Yeah.
You can use technology to rebuild the chairs perfectly, you can clone the exact type of wood, and you can place them in a pristine circle in a brand new room.
Yeah.
But if you've lost the living memory of the conversation that was supposed to happen in that room, the room is still empty.
A magnificent physical triumph, masking a profound ecological silence.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.